I mean, should I have tested? That is the question. Hi ladies, thanks for stopping by. My name is Hellynn and I'm currently in South Korea getting multiple rounds of IVF. I have a condition called DOR. My AMH is extremely low, almost non-existent, and so I have to do multiple rounds of IVF in order to get as many embryos as an average gal. On top of that, I am also 40 years old, and so I am running out of time. I decided to come here to bank as many embryos as I can while I can, and in the process, I am just sharing my journey with everybody. In this video, I wanted to share an update about my 5th egg retrieval. I can't believe I've already had that many. In the last video, I talked about my 4th egg retrieval and getting COVID leading up to that. And so I'll link that video up here if you haven't seen it. But for today, I will talk about how I decided to do PGT for my embryos this time. I have not done it at all for any of my previous cycles, and so this is the first time that I decided, actually all of a sudden, to do it. And so I will talk about PGT and how I came to that decision. PGT is generally recommended for women at my clinic who are in their 40s or who have had multiple miscarriages already. It's not something that my doctor even told me about. I don't think that they really test the embryos unless you specifically ask for it or you've had failed transfers before. So I'm sure all of you know what PGT-A is if you're clicking on this video, but just to be thorough, PGT-A is a type of biopsy where they take your embryo and they take a few cells from the trophectoderm of the embryo and they test it to see if there are any abnormal cells. Basically, they're testing to see if they're chromosomally abnormal. It's not 100% accurate because in an embryo, there's the baby portion and then there's the placenta portion. And they're taking cells from the placenta portion and not the baby. So, I mean, obviously they can't biopsy the baby part. So it's not 100% accurate. At my clinic, there are a couple of times when you can test. And the first option is right after your egg retrieval, when you have cultured your embryos to day 5, they will send it off to be tested at the lab, and you basically don't hear anything back for about 2 weeks, which is very nerve-wracking, but that's the first option. And then the second option is right before your transfer. If you are having an FET, then they thaw your embryo, and 24 hours before your transfer, they send it off to the labs for rapid testing. I guess they can get results in 24 hours. I feel like this is the scarier option because honestly, if all of your embryos are abnormal, then you have to cancel your transfer. So I actually opted for the first option, which is right after your egg retrieval. The unfortunate thing about that option is that you really don't hear anything from anybody for at least 2 weeks, and you just have no idea what's going on. I think it's different at every clinic, but for my clinic, that's the way that they do it. They just don't tell you anything for 2 weeks, and then you find out at the doctor's appointment. How much does it cost? I don't think that the cost is all that much. According to today's exchange rate, for my clinic, it's about $230 USD per embryo to get tested. Every clinic seems to have a different rate. Some clinics even require PGT, whereas other clinics never test the embryos because they believe that embryos can self-correct. And so I think it just really depends on your clinic. The why. A PGT normal embryo has a 60% chance of a live birth, which is pretty good. I don't know, I can't remember if it was 50 or 60%, but it's 50 to 60%, I believe. So I can see how women who get multiple embryos, they would want to do PGT because it increases their chance of success. But then again, for women like me who only get 1 or 2 embryos per cycle, and sometimes 0 embryos per cycle, you know, it's something to really think about because every single embryo is so precious and you want to give each one of them a chance. But at the same time, I am 40 years old, and at 40 years old, about 60 to 70% of your eggs are chromosomally abnormal. And so when you have those kind of numbers going against you, you start getting scared because, you know, the odds are against you. Usually when an embryo that's abnormal gets transferred, the woman will have a miscarriage or it'll fail to implant even. In rare cases, the baby will be born with Down syndrome or Turner syndrome, Edwards syndrome. These are all syndromes that are related to aneuploidy. So the question is, should you test? I mean, should I have tested? That is the question. I think it's really a personal choice. Everyone has their own set of circumstances and their own beliefs. I'll just walk you through how I came to make my decision. Originally, I did not want to test my embryos because I had done some research and I had read a study that there is a chance for abnormal embryos to be transferred, and then in some cases, they can self-correct inside the woman's body. I will link that article in the description below, but that's the reason why I initially, before I even started this whole IVF journey, decided that I did not want to test my embryos. And that's the reason why I hadn't tested any of my embryos. I have a few untested frozen embryos right now. So like I said before, there's a baby part of the embryo. If you imagine an embryo, there's a part that's going to become the baby, and then there's the part that's going to become the placenta. And sometimes when it's an abnormal embryo, the baby part pushes the abnormal cells out into the trophectoderm, which is what is going to become the placenta. Because we biopsy from this side, we don't know for sure if a PGT abnormal embryo is not going to self-correct. So there is a chance that an abnormal embryo might correct, especially with mosaics. But I mean, I've heard that even completely abnormal embryos can self-correct. So, I mean, is PGT really worth it if that's the case? That was my question when I started this journey, and I think that's the reason why I entered this journey thinking that I would definitely not test. Basically, we could be discarding completely normal embryos, you know? Every single embryo is so precious to me because sometimes I get 0 embryos in a cycle. And so I wanted to give every embryo a chance. Now, all of this thinking went out the window when I saw one of my friends who got pregnant after transferring a PGT normal embryo. And me kind of observing her and seeing how her mindset was and being a little bit envious, I'm not gonna lie, I thought how wonderful it is to be able to get a transfer knowing that you have a PGT normal embryo, and knowing that you're not going to miscarry because of aneuploidy. I wanted that level of comfort. I wanted that relief for myself. I think I was really scared. I think I was scared of having another miscarriage. I had had one before starting this whole IVF journey, and I never wanted to go through that ever again. It was such a traumatic experience. So I made my decision to test on a whim just a couple days before my 5th egg retrieval. To be honest with you, now that it's over, I'm not sure that I would have done it again. But this one's getting like way too long, so I will share my PGT results in my next video. Today I just wanted to kind of explain my fears and my decision to do PGT. And so thanks for sticking it out with me. Thanks for listening to my story so far. Thank you for all the sweet comments and messages. I really, really enjoy hearing from women that are going through the same thing as me. You're so strong, and I feel like we're all in it together. So thank you so much for that. Please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone you feel like might need it. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you soon.